Guru Nation, there was a very interesting podcast with the CEO of Eli Lilly on the Cheeky Pint podcast, which is a podcast I highly recommend. It's very underrated, created by the founders of Stripe. They're two brothers that never went public, kept their company private, and do whatever they want. And they have like one of the best podcasts in all of business, in my opinion. They had Eli Lilly CEO Dave Ricks. Dave is somebody who has been at Lilly, which is a 150-year-old company, just about. He's been there for about 28 years, literally one-fifth of the company's history. He's been there, and he's been the CEO the last couple of years. And I don't know, he might be my favorite big pharma CEO of all time. I mean, this guy gets on podcasts, he tells it how it is. He was on the All In podcast before a few months back, and he talked about a lot of things pertaining to clinical researchers. He talked about, like, I think us as clinical researchers, and this is where I like to marry my biotech investing passion with my site owner and clinical research expertise. He sees the whole playing field. As the CEO, you're not just seeing the preclinical stuff. You're not just seeing drug discovery. You're not just seeing sales and commercialization. You're not just seeing clinical trials. You're literally seeing everything. You're seeing deal making, you're seeing partnerships, you're seeing supply chain management, you're seeing the payers and the cost of drug prices, you're seeing the political stuff with Trump and the most favored nation, you're seeing the FDA new administration and the chaos that has ensued with Doge and the NIH cuts. He sees everything. And I think for us in the clinical research industry, or maybe you're a biotech investor, you're only seeing one part of the picture. And I think getting a 2 hour podcast like this, it's linked underneath this video. And if you're listening in the show notes, it's linked in the show notes too. I'm going to link to the YouTube one because it's easier, but I was listening on Spotify. He got into a couple things. One of the things he got into, in no order of importance, just what struck out as memorable to me. I'm gonna write a full article on this on my LinkedIn newsletter, Investigators Brochure, with my thoughts. Uh, First of all, Lilly is about to be the first $1 trillion pharma company. They're really close, um, thanks to the GLP-1s that they've been building and creating since 2006, really. They researched, he mentioned in 2006 there was a cover with their GLP-1, a lady on the cover because they were using it as a diabetes drug. That's how it started. And the quote on the cover said something like, I'm managing my diabetes and I'm also losing some weight. And that was 2006, almost 20 years ago. Who would have known that it would have taken over the planet, GLP-1s, and he gets into that too, the history of GLPs, the history of drug development. Highly recommend. But one of the things he mentioned that struck out to me was the cost of doing trials. And he said it's $4 billion to get a drug approved, like fully loaded. That's including the failures. That's including the cost of capital. Um, Deloitte, which is a consulting agency, recently did a report. I wrote about this in March of 2025. The top 20 biopharmers, their number was more around 2.2 billion. Either way, the drivers are identical. 60% of the spend is on those phase three, those pivotal phase three. And the median patient cost in a late stage trial is somewhere between 40 to 60 grand. As a site owner, I could tell you, yes, sometimes we actually receive more than that for some of these late stage trials per patient. But that is including the CRO costs, not just the site cost, the CRO cost, the patient recruitment cost, all that stuff. So he talked about this study that they already enrolled quickly. It was an Alzheimer's prevention study for people that had genetic biomarkers or genetic predispositions to Alzheimer's, but didn't have the disease yet. And they managed to run a virtual trial, which, by the way, is not new nor innovative. Craig Lipset, who used to be the director of innovation at Pfizer, he's a friend of the Guru Pod. I've had him on a few times. He's a legendary clinical research figurehead. He, I had him on my podcast in 2010 when Pfizer had a overactive bladder study, I believe, that they completely filled virtually, meaning they had one investigator, they had the drugs, the investigational products shipped directly to the patient homes. They had study nurses going to the patient's homes, and one PI running the whole thing. He says he recognizes that's not going to be the norm, but he doesn't see why we can't do more of that stuff going forward. So, as much as I, as a site owner, I'm biased against this, I don't think we could replace sites in the majority of trials. Technology is making it so it's easier for the sponsors to do that. And a lot of this podcast focused around the real cost of drugs and the required risk adjustments needed just to break even. So Lilly, for example, for him it's 510 million, which is the peak sales just to break even on a drug. Now, if you take out their GLP-1s, it's actually 370 million. Lilly alone, this is what I thought was staggering, is spending $14 billion on R&D this year, which is more than Germany's entire medical research budget just by one company. Like they're outspending nation states. Lilly rebuilt the machine while everyone else was complaining. They're the fastest large-scale drug developer on Earth. Industry average first in human to approval is 10 years. And like I said, Lilly is routinely doing it under 7. As a site that has worked with Lilly before, I can tell you their expectations and their standards are very high, but they treat sites very well. They pay them on time. Lilly's one of the only sponsors, there's another one, but Lilly's one of the only ones that pays multiple times a month for our study visits. Um, they do use Ariba as the payment portal, so I got to take away some points from them on that one. But honestly, they're top two drug companies to work with as a site owner is concerned. So they're getting into decentralized trials, direct to patient at scale. They're also looking at direct to patient on the sales side, trying to cut out the pharmacy benefit managers. He talks about that as well. EHR mining, EMR mining. They love that. They're at the forefront of this. They got NVIDIA to build a Blackwell supercluster, which is a supercomputer. They're the only pharmaceutical company to have their own supercomputer on site. They got into biotech stuff. Cliff notes, it's going to be a good time to be a biotech investor. They get into probably the most frustrating 15 minutes of the interview was the discussion, at least from Rick's and the host's perspective, was talking about cheap generics like statins, metformin, insulin. They've driven the standard of care price floor to essentially zero, and new drugs now have to deliver gigantic incremental quality of life improvements to get reimbursed, even when they are dramatically better in cost savings. So Ricks said if tirzepatide had been the first metabolic drug in 1972, it would be fully reimbursed everywhere today. Today, the number one way new patients get Zepbound is cash pay via Lilly Direct because the system is too slow and misaligned. And something ridiculous, he said for every, like hypothetically, if a drug cost $150 for a patient, the Lilly only gets, I think he used insulin as this example, and I think it was $350. You got to listen to the podcast. I'll get the numbers right when I write the article. The pharmacy benefit managers took most of that. Lilly would get $40. It cost them $40 for the to make the medicine. So going direct, they're on board. It makes them more patient-centric. And unfortunately, the way healthcare is priced in the United States, it's the biggest insurance companies that benefit the most, and then the little guys, all the way down to the individual cash paying patients, are the ones that get stuck with the worst deal. And the system is slow and misaligned, and he believes that Lilly Direct, which is their direct way of selling directly to patients, it's their online pharmacy, is the way to go. Now, he's the most bullish, like I said, on the biotech sector right now, and he thinks the ecosystem's about to enter a golden age. Guys that have been following this podcast, I've been telling you since last year, we are going to enter the golden age for clinical research, and it's going to be because of the biotech companies. And Dave is super optimistic about biotechs, and the biggest reasons he stated, um, there's three viable models for biotech and investor liquidity. So the new modalities, the one-time gene edits, the oral gene silencers, the radio pharma, they're all delivering therapeutic indices we've never seen. But the GLP-1 flywheel accounts for 20 to 25% of sales. Direct to consumer works. Patients will pay cash when the system fails. AI is finally drugging the undruggable. So AI is starting to discover what does not exist in nature, which has actually never happened before, and that we're just starting. It's just starting to get trained on that. And then the venture funding, 26 billion and rising on the early stage biotechs. So three models according to Dave's crystal clear framing of the biotech ecosystem. Really, the only three business models that work today, according to him. The grow up biotech model, so think Vertex, Regeneron, the one of literally 1,000, where you start small and you grow into the fully integrated company from discovery to commercial and sales. Extremely hard and extremely rare. The early outsource flip model, so you stay virtual, lean, human proof of concept, maybe phase two, and then flip it and allow the either sell it or partner with big pharma, which you're going to see a lot more partnerships and mergers and acquisitions coming up this year and next year, and outsource the trials to big pharma because they're good at that. So late stage execution, phase two, even phase one, but really phase two and phase three is the reliable exit for these biotechs for the majority, I think. And then you have the hybrid model, which is actually Lilly's playbook on the partnership side. They keep the discovery diffuse. So what they have, because despite Lilly being a big pharma, they also behave in many ways like a biotech. So they keep, he was talking about their San Diego plant or lab. They only have 400 employees there. And that lab is responsible for, I think, 25% of Lilly's drugs that they have. And so they're buying novelty early. They're letting the scientists do their thing. They're letting them cook, as he said. And then when it starts to de-risk, when they buy early novelty and when it starts to de-risk, meaning good phase 2B a data readout, then they grind relentlessly with industry-wide scale, global footprint. Eventually it gets to the commercial side. That's the name of the game. His exact quote for this was, "Discovery should stay diffuse. Small creative labs are the best at it, but clinical execution, manufacturing, and global distribution require scale and rigor that only a few players have." So, in his opinion, this hybrid model is the template. And if you're a VC or early stage biotech investor, if you're not building a top 10 pharma, uh, one of the top 10 pharma are going to want to partner with you. And as somebody who invests in in a few biotechs, I can tell you this is the case as a site owner. I'm seeing the biotechs we work with ultimately end up getting acquired or merged or partnered with the big pharma. So I'm going to write an article on this. I thought it was really good. He's very critical of the healthcare system, but he's also very optimistic about the future. And of course, he's optimistic. He's running the best drug company ever, maybe with a $1 trillion market cap pretty soon. Let me know what you think. I got the entire link to the interview underneath this video and in the show notes if you're listening. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Take care.